Raising children can be very difficult, but raising adolescents is even harder. From pubertal changes to social development to social interactions at school and even emotional ability at home, there's so much involved with raising an adolescent, and there are so many questions that parents have. I'm here to answer those questions and more on this episode of Ask the Doc, No Appointment Needed.
Funding for this program is brought to you by Michael J. Zinner, MD.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Scarlet Constant, board-certified pediatrician and founder of Constant Care Pediatrics. Welcome to Ask the Doc, No Appointment Needed, where I answer your questions in real time as they come in. Please email your questions or send them into the AllHealth TV app. And it looks like a question's coming in from Facebook right now. This question's from Maya. Hola, Dr. Constant. Our 10-year-old girl, Maria, feels everything so strongly. Why are the preteen years so emotionally intense? Well, that's a great question, Maya. And the reason why the emotions are so intense is because 10 years of age is a very interesting time where she might not be in puberty just yet, but she is entering it slowly. And with that, not only do you have formation of your frontal lobe, which controls your emotions and your thoughts and your maturity, but you also start to have the waxing and waning of your hormones. The hormones are developing and they're changing, and they make our emotions a little more labile than they used to be. So 10 years of age is a very interesting time because they are entering this transition and they're starting to feel things a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and they're a little more affirmative in what they're feeling and believing. So please try to be patient with her. And this is going to be a long road. It's usually from ages 10 to about 16. So you'll have some ups and downs, and it will be a bit of a roller coaster, but I promise you it'll be worth it in the end. It seems that we have a question getting sent in now from the AllHealth TV app. This question's from Everly. Hi, doctor. Our 11-year-old son had a temper tantrum yesterday because he wants a phone. He said that all his friends have one, so he's desperate to have one too. We don't want him to feel left out, but we don't think he's old enough for a phone. Everly, I completely agree with you. I really think 11 is far too young for a child to have a phone. Now, let's distinguish between having a phone for communication and having a phone with apps and social media, because there is a difference. Nowadays, there are many ways to get a phone where you can actually just communicate via phone calls or text messaging. And I completely understand why an 11-year-old or older, such as a middle school age child, would want a phone. It's very difficult to communicate with them once they get into middle school. In elementary school, things were a little more easy. We're oftentimes, as parents, we're on the campus, we're very involved with the school, and it's a lot easier to track our children. Whereas middle school and older, we're a little more detached from the school environment. Our kids are participating in a lot more activities. And yes, it is sometimes hard to communicate with your child, or maybe there's been some schedule changes and your child wants to communicate with you and they can't get in touch with you. I completely understand, and that's a reasonable thought for your child to want a phone. In that case, you can get your son a phone that just has text messaging and phone calls, and there's no access to the internet, to social media, or to any apps whatsoever. They're completely unable to download apps. If your son's okay with that, and if your son wants a phone because he does want to communicate with you, or maybe you'd like to communicate with him, I think that's a great idea. If he's taking the bus or he walks home and you just want to make sure that he's okay, I think giving him a phone for that reason is a great idea. But if he does want a phone with its full capabilities and with internet access and apps and social media and access to these things, I really think that he's far too young for that. And you should have an honest conversation with him about it. You should explain to him the pros and the cons. You should explain to him why you don't think that he's ready emotionally and maturity wise. He's not ready to explore these things. Not to say that his friends are ready and he isn't, but you just want to explain to him what is out there and what he would be faced with and what he would be exposed to and why you don't think that's okay at this time. I would also be a little delicate about the way you explain it, because I find that now that parents are speaking about the phone use, and we really have been seeing a lot of coverage on social media and how negatively it affects children. And there seems to be, like everything else today in this climate, a bit of a divide. So our kids are understanding that those parents that give their children phones and let them do what they want are quote unquote bad parents, and those that don't want to give this to their children are the better parents. And we don't want to paint that picture. We're not saying one parent is better than the other. We're not saying that there should be one side where we're divided and there's the phone users and the non-phone users. I really don't want our children to get that message from us. We just want to explain to them why maybe your family feels that it's not a good idea yet, whereas other families might be more ready than your family is. So I would be delicate with explaining that. I have seen it in my own kids. I've seen that they have spoken about some that have phones, whereas others don't, and there's been this comparison, and we don't want to see that happen. We want, we don't want our kids to start dividing and believing that one is better than the other. So please have a good talk with your son about this and explain to him why you don't feel, and maybe you don't want to say that he is personally not ready, meaning that he's immature, but the content is above what you're ready to expose him to. That might be a better way to put it. Okay, so there's a question now being sent in from Facebook, and this is from Cameron. Dr. Constant, my 9-year-old daughter came home really upset yesterday. It seems she got into it with another girl, but she won't tell me what happened. How can you tell the difference between regular conflict and bullying? Well, Cameron, that's a great question. Remember, we were all young. Conflict is normal. Kids fight with each other. They get into fights for days at a time. They're friends for 2 months. They're not friends for a year. This happens all the time. That is conflict. That is normal. And our children do need to learn conflict resolution. I think that some of that has been lost over time because we've become a little hyper paranoid about bullying. Now, what is bullying? Bullying is when a child is almost targeted, you might say, and this child is constantly being harassed or being put down or being attacked by either the same person or a group of people repeatedly. Regardless of the relationship, regardless of the circumstances, it's the same person being targeted over and over. And there are different types of bullying. For example, there is physical bullying, where they're actually, pushing a child around, the same kid every day. You bump into them or you trip them and you constantly target them over and over. Verbal bullying, meaning calling them names or saying things that might hurt or upset them. Social and cyberbullying, which is newer. This is something where you're targeting on social media. So you might send messages or maybe post about them and make them feel bad about themselves. But again, it's the same child over and over and repeatedly being abused. And then finally, identity-based bullying, meaning they're just targeting them based on what this child's identity association is. And so it is important, if your kid comes home and has a fight with their friend, or they've had a fight a couple times with their friend, or there are different issues going on, that's one thing. But if they tell you repeatedly, we keep having these issues and I think we're friends, but we're fighting over and over, and now they pushed me out of the group, and now they're doing this is repeat offenses, that's when you start to get concerned that maybe now this is a pattern of bullying. But again, I would like to remind you that conflict is healthy. Conflict is normal. And I really think that as parents, we need to be supportive and maybe give them the tools they need to resolve this conflict, but not intervene and not be quick to call it bullying. If you'd like to send in some questions and this is of interest to you, this is how to do it.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
So it looks like there are people that are interested in this topic. Let's see, there's a question coming in now from our All Health TV app. Calvin wants to know, hey doctor, I dealt with a couple of bullies when I was growing up, and one of them was my older brother. I want to know why some kids become bullies. Calvin, that's a great question. We'd all like to know that, but I'd say there isn't one answer. There are a myriad of circumstances. Bullying is basically just a response to inner feelings and emotions that a person has, and they're just basically projecting onto someone else. And there could be many reasons. There can be issues going on in the home, a relationship with the bully and their parents, the relationship that the bully has with other children around them. There could be a feeling of needing attention, or needing to be in control, or needing to be dominant. I mean, there's so much involved with what with how a bully is actually formed. And what's important is, how do we deal with this bully? And I'm very sorry that you had this problem in your home, and I am sad that your biggest bully was your actual sibling, because that really should be your ally and your best friend. But that's where I will go ahead and say that your parents needed to be involved. And if parents see bullying going on, it's the way they deal with it that can either support the bully, or break down that behavior. So, bullying, I'm not blaming parents. It's not one reason, and I'm not saying taking all the responsibility away from the bully. Of course, there's a part of them that lacks empathy, that lacks compassion, and that is actually having a very negative effect on other people. But this came from somewhere. There's a reason why this person is this way, and we need to dive in and figure that out. And usually we're going to say it starts in the home. Okay, here's another question, and it's coming in from Josie. Hey, Dr. C, how can you tell if your kid is being bullied? They keep their emotions close to the vest. What should you do if you find out that they are being bullied? Well, Josie, yeah, this is a very good question, because yes, some kids will really be tight-lipped about it. And we talk about this all the time. I am a very big proponent on communication. Parents need to communicate with their kids. And I think what's important to remember is, you don't want to try to open up communication when something is wrong, because then it just seems like you're prying and you want to know what's happening. You always want to have open lines of communication with your children, so that if and when something like this happens, they already have the open line of communication, and they're already relaxed enough to talk to you about it. So you do want to talk to your kids about what's going on at school. You don't need to ask exactly what happened. Is something okay? What's going on? But hey, what's going on at school? How is it going? How is so-and-so? I haven't seen them in a while, or I haven't seen this friend. This friend hasn't called you in a bit. Where have they been? So you want to know the day-to-day. And that way you understand if there is a shift or something is going on. You'll notice there's a difference. And then you can kind of hone in a little bit and ask a couple more questions. But maybe your child is one of those kids that really doesn't want to be, quote unquote, a tattletale, and they're scared that you might try to intervene. Or maybe it's somebody that's very close to your family, and your child doesn't want you to know because you're friends with the parents. There are many reasons why they don't want to tell us, or they might even want to protect us. So what you want to do is make sure that they're okay. You want to make sure that your child is feeling safe, is okay, and can talk to you. And maybe they're not going to tell you all of the details of what's happening, but they'll let you know that, hey, I'm okay, I've got this, or I'm not stressed out, or I am really stressed out and I don't know what to do. And you can help them with that without knowing all of the details of the bullying. So again, the bottom line is, keep your lines of communication open with your child. Make sure you know what's going on in their life. Maybe not every single detail, but you do want to know baseline, if everything is under control, and if the friend groups are okay, and if things are healthy amongst their friends, and that'll at least give you some basis as to what's going on. Okay, so here is a question coming in now from Facebook, and it's from Gemma. Hi, doctor. Should parents intervene during a sibling rivalry argument? Gemma, no. No, 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 no. And it's so hard, and I am a parent, and Dr. Constant is telling you do not intervene, but the mother is telling you I probably intervene like 50% of the time in my house. I think that's a huge mistake. I think siblings, they live together, they're each other's best friends, and if all works out in the plan of life, we pass away and they are left with each other. They need to know how to deal with each other, how to work with each other, how to resolve conflicts. And when we come in and try to resolve it, inevitably one becomes favored over the other. And this is what perpetuates the rivalry. We perpetuate the rivalry, how we deal with our children, whose side we took at the time, who we understood better during the argument. We need to step away and get out of that, let them figure it out on their own. Obviously, if it's physical, you've got to intervene. But if it is an argument, you let them sort it out on their own. This is my bet. This is what I strongly believe. Now, as a parent, after the fact, completely removed from the argument, maybe even another day, you do want to talk about conflict resolution and how to get through certain instances. And maybe you want to talk about the argument that happened a few days ago and objectively discuss the argument and objectively explain where someone went wrong, or what could have been done better, how we could have avoided it, how we could have improved it, but objectively. But getting in and sorting it out and telling someone that they were wrong and this other one was right is a great way to perpetuate the sibling rivalry. And I think as a parent, we need to be very careful about that. Good luck, Gemma. So Paige wants to know, Dr. Constant, our 9-year-old daughter is young, but we think she's beginning adolescence. Her moods are up and down, and her body is changing. What can we do to help her? Well, Paige, yes. So your daughter is definitely entering the prepubertal stages. Let's take a look at this video from my colleagues at the Mayo Clinic and then discuss later.
All teens can go through periods where they're down, or they're cranky, they're irritable, they're just mean.
A moody teen has brief bursts of teen angst, usually focused only toward mom and dad. But a depressed teen, says Mayo Clinic child psychiatrist Dr. Paul Corkin, has mood changes that are consistent.
Any disruption in sleep is important to think about. Changes in how they eat, be it more or less, weight changes, tearfulness, a focus on just kind of negative, hopeless themes.
These may be signs that your teen needs to be evaluated for depression.
Start with a primary care provider, a family practice doctor, a pediatrician, or a mental health provider.
Sometimes lifestyle changes like strict sleeping schedules, monitoring screen usage, eating a healthy diet, and regular exercise may help.
For moderate or severe symptoms, teenagers will benefit from things like psychotherapy or the judicious use of medications.
And any talk of suicide should be taken seriously. For the Mayo Clinic News Network, I'm Ian Roth.
So that was a great video. And to answer your question, Paige, how can you help your child that's going through this? I think the most important thing is to educate your child. Your child is 9 years old right now, most likely has not learned anything about human growth and development. And a lot of schools, depending on where you live, don't even discuss it anymore. So I think it's very important to educate your child so that your daughter understands what is happening. Why is it happening? Explain the hormonal changes and what this means and what she's to look for in the future, and her body changes and that her emotions and her mood is going to change, because there's nothing worse than thinking that you're going crazy. You want to understand what is happening. And of course, you want to make sure she understands she's not the only one. Not only have you gone through it yourself, but her classmates are going through it. You want her to understand that this is everybody. You're not the only one at school feeling this way. Everybody feels this way or will feel this way. So you want to educate her, you want to empower her so that she understands what's happening, and then you want to support her. If she's having a bad day, you understand, and she wants to cry for no apparent reason, you'll be there to support her, as opposed to asking questions constantly, what's wrong? Why are you feeling this way? Then they feel that they need to come up with an answer, they need to have a reason to feel the way they're feeling when there really might not be a reason. And again, that makes you feel bad because then you feel strange. So you just want to let them know, hey, if you feel bad today and you have no idea why, that's totally fine. Lay on me and just cry it out, and then we're going to get through it. And then you want to help give her the tools to make it out, right? You want, if you're moody or if you're feeling down, that's one thing, but you never want to slip into depression. So you want to teach your kids. You know, you feel bad today, you're crying, you feel like you want to stay home, that's fine. You get a free pass, but tomorrow we're going to get up and we're going to do this and we're going to be motivated, and you want to help them, you want to empower them so they can get out of it and move forward. And remind them over and over, it is normal and everyone goes through this. Okay, if you want to send in your questions, take a look and see how to do it.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Well, it looks like we have some questions coming in. This is a really hot topic. This question's from Beckett. Hey, Dr. Constant, our 11-year-old son is a really loving kid, but for some reason, he seems to be excluded from activities with other kids in his grade. He just started middle school and doesn't seem to have many friends his own age. What can we do to help him engage with other kids? Beckett, I'm so sorry to hear that. There's nothing more hurtful to a parent than seeing their child being left out or ostracized, and I really am sorry. And I think it's great though that you recognize it and you're there to try to help him and figure out what to do to get him included in this group. Well, I think the first thing is, talk to Beckett. See what's happening. In what way is he left out? Is he left out just because he's forgotten, or has he pulled himself out a little bit? Sometimes as parents, we are so nervous about what others are doing to our child. We never think for a minute that maybe it's our child that's pulling themselves out of the group. That has definitely happened to me before, where I really thought my child was being left out all the time. And over time, I realized it was my child that was kind of turning away the groups, for lack of a better word, and rejecting them. So you want to see if this is something where he feels that he's being left out, forgotten, or people don't notice him, or is he just not fitting in with the group and doesn't want to be part of the group. And then what you want to do is find out, is there one person that he does get along with or is friendly with or wants to be friendly with. And I think the easiest thing to do is try to include that one friend and invite them over and create opportunities for your son to interact. Maybe it's hard for him to interact in the school setting because it's a little bit intimidating, but alone in his territory, maybe he is a little more open and wants to interact with this friend and has a great time. Not everybody wants to be part of a big group. Not everybody wants to be part of the crew. Sometimes some kids do well with just one very good friend that they have a great time with. So what I would encourage you to do is speak to your son and find out, is there that one friend? And if so, extend the line of communication, extend an olive branch, have them come over, or plan a play date with the parents and you can meet somewhere. Maybe a neutral ground would be helpful. That can always work. You also want to see if your child is interested in activities, whether it's sports or arts or music. If there's something that your son's interested in, try to get him involved in that group. And maybe he doesn't have any friends in the group, but he enjoys the activity. And then over time, they do become a little group, whether it's in a music class or a band or a sports team. I mean, there are many opportunities. You don't necessarily have to be included in the core group at school. There are many other ways to socialize. And I think it's important to learn what type of socializer your son is. If he likes to have an individual friend or a group, or just wants to be part of a large activity, however that is, you can encourage that and have him work that way and eventually meet some friends that way. I hope that this is helpful. Good luck to you. Okay, Daphne has a question. Hello, Dr. Constant. I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I'm concerned that my daughter is becoming a mean girl like in the movies. She's nasty to her sister, her relatives, and even some of her friends. What can we do to teach her compassion? Oh, Daphne, I am really sorry to hear that. Don't be embarrassed. I'm glad that you're actually acknowledging it and admitting it. I think that's the first step because most parents would completely deny and look away. So the fact that you can see this and acknowledge it is great. So now we need to dive in and figure out what to do. I think first of all, starting at home, her being nasty to her sister is completely unacceptable. And that needs to be understood in your home. There should be no instance where she feels emboldened enough to do something quote unquote nasty to her sister in the presence of her parents. So we'll start there. Secondly, with the relatives and family friends, again, if she's going to family gatherings or holidays or you're together with the family and she is rude to people, that means she thinks it's okay to do so. So that needs to be controlled first and foremost. Once those things are controlled at home, and once she knows that she cannot cross that boundary and be rude or nasty to her own family, then that extends out hopefully to others. You can't really teach compassion, unfortunately, but you can teach respect. You can teach being kind to others. You can teach someone to not cross the boundaries of being hurtful to another person. That you can absolutely teach. And that starts with you and your partner in the home. And once she knows that is absolutely unacceptable, then we can talk about what's going on at school. We need to talk about the relationship that she has with you. I don't know what it is, but there must be something going on in the home where either there's a negative relationship between you and her or her and her sister. And that of course needs to be rectified and resolved. And then we can move on to the friends. But absolutely, and of course, I always say, I mean, it's easy to say it, but we need to remember that kids learn by example. And I know that we all believe we're great people, we're not mean to others, but there is something that she is seeing and that she is modeling or she is internalizing and projecting. So we need to take a good look at that and figure that out in order to help resolve this issue. And I hope that those small steps were helpful. Of course, you can always seek guidance from your pediatrician and if even needed, a psychologist, but certainly speak to your pediatrician about this. All right, well, I hope that's helpful. I think we have time for one more question. George, hi doc, is moodiness normal at this age? I'm assuming that you're talking about the adolescent period. Moodiness is normal between 9 and 16-ish. It is normally abnormal. It shouldn't be accepted. They should not have carte blanche to do whatever they want. But understand that this is part of development and puberty, and we do need to understand that this is kind of part of the age, and it is okay. I hope that these questions or these answers were helpful to you. And if you didn't get your question answered, please send them in and we will try to send you these answers as soon as we can. Thank you.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Funding for this program was brought to you by Michael J. Zinner, MD,